Shocking discoveries about Iran and Israel, the mysterious biblical truth revealed. Few knew what truly happened that night in ancient times. A dimly lit room in Jerusalem, shadows danced against the stone walls. The air was thick with tension, whispers of prophecy mingled with the scent of incense. A gathering of the faithful, but all eyes were on one man. David. King David. The chosen one. The heart to unite a nation, yet a heart that carried heavy secrets. Behind closed doors, an extraordinary event unfolded. David was said to have had a vision met with disbelief. This was no ordinary dream, it was a revelation involving lands that would shape empires for centuries. Israel, a land promised to him, would collide with forces from Iran, igniting an age-old rivalry that echoed through the ages. Heartbeats quickened as he shared the details, every word charged with urgency, a kingdom at stake. How could he stand up against such overwhelming odds? In the burning heat of the desert, under a sky dotted with stars, the ground was soaked with stories of conflict and peace. Generations had come and gone, yet the tension persisted. Ancient scrolls hinted at mysterious bonds and betrayals, veiled truths waiting to be unearthed. The scrolls spoke of miracles, devastating plagues, and battles that seemed orchestrated by unseen hands. Each scroll unfurled another layer of destiny. The Red Sea. The burning bush. Bold, miraculous moments of divine intervention that left more questions than answers. What tangled web had been woven between these two lands? A friendship turned bitter, a prophecy shrouded in darkness. The shadows of betrayal loomed large, faces etched with uncertainty. The people prayed, but terror coursed through their veins. Would they find salvation, or was ruin inevitable? The twists and turns of fate danced dangerously close, leaving their lives hanging in the balance. The night thickened with suspense. Suddenly, a crash echoed outside, breaking the silence. A collective gasp surged through the group. What awaited on the horizon? Hope or despair? The distant sound of drums began to reverberate, a signal, perhaps, of what was to come. The air crackled with electricity, a prelude to upheaval. Could this be the moment foretold? The clash of nations, the ultimate test of faith and courage. But where was the light amid the shadows? What would unfold as night turned to dawn, and the secrets of the past collided with the present? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The drums beat louder now, resonating with a primal urgency that could be felt in the very bones of the earth. King David stood at the center of the gathering, his heart pounding not just from the ominous sounds outside, but from the weight of his own revelations. The shadows flickered as the candles dimmed, their flames fighting against the encroaching darkness. Listen closely, he urged, his voice steady yet filled with a tremor of foresight. The visions I have been granted reveal not merely conflict but the intertwining destinies of our people and those beyond our borders. This is a tale of kinship that became estranged, a revelation that challenges our understanding of what it means to be chosen. A murmur rippled through the assembly, the air thickened with the unspoken fear of the future. David took a deep breath, guiding their thoughts into deeper waters. In the heart of the storm, I saw not just an enemy but a yearning for reconciliation, cloaked in the guise of enmity. For our histories are woven together, threads of kin and kindred spirits, twisted into a fabric of struggle and strife. He paused, considering the scrolls that held the wisdom of centuries. Even now, the whispers of our ancestors beckon us to listen. Remember the tale of Joseph, who was cast away by his own brothers yet rose to be their savior in a time of famine? What if we are called to find wisdom in our past and seek the strands of unity amid this chaos? The group fell silent, captivated by the gravity of his words. As the distant drums continued their insistence, David felt their meaning pressing against him. They were not just announcing war, they were invoking the echoes of history, demanding that he lead with both strength and grace. I sensed a movement in the spirit, he continued, a pathway illuminated by faith. If we stand firm, if we seek the truth buried beneath layers of desalting bitterness, perhaps we can rise above the impending clash and forge a new destiny for both our peoples. Outside the walls, the sounds grew fainter as the night pressed on, but in the room, a fire sparked. The faithful began to nod, their gazes locking onto David's, and hope dared to flicker within their hearts. Yet, uncertainty tightened its grip, conflict was still imminent, hanging like a dark storm cloud above them. Just then, from the shadows emerged Nathan, the prophet, his robes billowing as he stepped into the dim light. "King David," he intoned, his voice rich and resonant, "in visions, I have also seen the clash ahead, but have you considered what peace truly requires? Sacrifice or surrender? Are we prepared to pave the path for those yet unseen? Is humility the key that unlocks both heart and land?" David's brow furrowed at the challenge presented. The prophet's words struck deep, reverberating through his soul. "What are we willing to give up to grasp the deliverance promised to us?" he pondered, feeling the weight of not just a nation but of generations on his shoulders. As the flickering flames danced erratically, a realization dawned: the battle would not just be fought with swords and shields but also within the hearts of the people, a battle for unity within their own fractured spirits. Would they embrace this calling and face the storm together, or would the shadows of doubt and fear lead them astray? As doubt mingled with determination, the question loomed larger than the night: what hidden sacrifices awaited on the path to peace, and at what cost would their prophecies unfold? As the night's silence enveloped the gathering, an uncanny stillness settled in the air, as though creation itself awaited the next revelation. David felt the weight of Nathan's gaze, piercing yet compassionate, urging him to go deeper into the unknown that lay before them. "We are bound not only by blood and lineage, my people," David declared, his voice unwavering, "but also by our shared hopes and fears. We are travelers on a road twisted and tangled by choices made in the past." He felt the murmurs of agreement brushing lightly against his ears, yet he sensed an undercurrent of doubt still swirling within the assembly. "You speak of kinship," Nathan said, stepping forward, "yet what binds us can also bind us. Our pasts may be intertwined, but can we trust the hearts that have been hardened by strife?" He turned his gaze to the men and women whose faces bore the marks of their ancestors' wounds. "Will we see our enemies not simply as adversaries but as brothers and sisters lost in the wilderness of conflict?" A young woman, her head bowed under the weight of sorrow, raised her voice. "Prophet, my brother fell in battle, taken from us by those we now must reckon with. How can we look upon these faces as kin when our own blood cries out for vengeance? How can we break the cycles of grief that bind us to hatred?" A murmur of agreement surged through the room. Grief was a thread too heavy to weave into the fragile fabric of peace. David's heart ached in empathy. "We must indeed grasp the pain of our losses," he replied softly, "for it is real and true. Yet to linger in it is to remain shackled to our sorrow. What if within our grief lies the impetus for understanding?" He recalled the stories of their ancestors of failed promises and broken covenants. "It is in the stories that we find the light," he pressed on, "stories that once brought solace now toss us into despair. But we must rewrite the narrative. Strive to see the humanity beyond the enemy's guise, for every soul bears the fingerprints of the Creator." Nathan nodded, a glimmer of hope kindling in his eyes. "And who among us would dare to lead this charge towards reconciliation? To walk into the bowels of pain and emerge with the grace to forgive, to bridge the chasm that threatens to swallow us whole?" At that moment, the ground beneath them trembled, as if fate herself stirred in response to their deliberations. David found himself enveloped in a newfound resolve. Yet, a daunting thought filled him with caution: redemption often demanded more than words. What if, David pondered aloud, we sought to take the first step? Perhaps a gathering, a holy communion among all that have borne the weight of discord. A meeting not under banners of war but beneath a canopy of shared lamentation and prayer? The room ignited with whispers and glances of hesitant hope, and yet David recognized the weight of skepticism threading through the assembly. It is a costly endeavor, he conceded. Certainly, we risk further betrayal and loss. But consistent with our past lies the potential for salvation. Are we willing to put aside our differences, if only for a moment, to consider the possibility of a future beyond this conflict? The question lingered heavily in the air, an entreaty that echoed among their hearts like the softest breath of wind disturbing the stillness of the night. Would they summon the courage to open their hearts wider than their wounds? Or would the dark shadows of ancient grudges pull them further into despair? As the solitary candle flickered defiantly against the dim interior, David contemplated the true cost of forgiveness and unity. What might they discover about themselves in the pursuit of peace? What unknown mysteries awaited them on this uncharted path? As the flame danced, casting wavering shadows upon the weary faces around him, David felt the gravity of the moment. Each heartbeat seemed to echo with the weight of history. For generations, the threads of discord had bound their people, each strand thickened by betrayal and anger, yet now, in this fragile gathering, the possibility of healing flickered like a distant star. "Perhaps we fear what we do not understand," Nathan said, his voice low but steady. "In seeking to unveil our enemies as kin, we may unearth tales buried deep, stories that stretch back to our forefathers, tales entwined with our very identity." He looked out into the crowd, searching for a spark of recognition. What if those we regard as adversaries carry within them the residue of our own heartaches? A murmur of contemplation swept over the assembly, delicate yet powerful. "We must delve deeper," David urged, his mind racing with the implications of Nathan's words. "We cannot confront the ghosts of our past without first acknowledging the common humanity we all share. Each scar tells a story, one that may reveal the shared ideology that binds us closer than we dare to believe." The young woman, who had previously spoken of her brother's death, glanced up, uncertainty lining her features. "But what if those stories lead us back to pain? What if our shared history is built upon betrayal and bloodshed, way too heavy to bear?" David sensed the fear radiating from her. It mirrored his own trepidations. Understanding may unearth much, but it may also provide a clearer view of our path forward. It is through the honest retelling of both our victories and defeats that we discover the tapestry of humanity interwoven within our struggle. Only then may we find the courage to forgive and the wisdom to learn from our past. Nathan placed a hand on David's shoulder, grounding him in the moment. "What if our gathering becomes a sacred space dedicated to remembrance? A collective confession that acknowledges our hurt, the lamentation of lost dreams, honoring both the living and those who've fallen. In this communion, can we brave the unveiling of truths long hidden, exposing the fragile humanity behind each foe's mask?" There was an intensity in the air, a kindling of potential that stirred within the hearts of those present. David took a deep breath, feeling the weight of conviction settle within him. Together, we can open our hearts to a new narrative. It begins with a simple act, sharing our stories, bearing witness to our collective suffering, and gradually dispelling the darkness that obscures compassion. A figure in the crowd, a wise elder known for his quiet strength, finally spoke. "What of their tales, those who have inflicted pain upon us? Will we welcome them into our circle, allowing them to share their truths? Or will the echoes of hatred persist, overshadowing their humanity?" A ripple of unease coursed through the gathering, but David stood resolute. "It begins with us. We must look beyond the lines drawn by animosity, illuminate both our wounds and our hopes, and forge a connection through our sorrow. To heal, we must embrace the discomfort of unveiling our past." As if in answer, the air shifted, and the candle's flame flared brightly then dimmed, leaving shadows more pronounced than before. David pondered the uncertain path that lay ahead. Would this endeavor reveal the threads of redemption woven into the fabric of their shared existence? Or would it expose the fractures too deep to mend, bringing forth more strife rather than solace? The night deepened around them, filled with both uncertainty and an unquenchable flicker of hope. Was it possible that within the shared pain of their history lay the seeds of renewal? What truths remained hidden, waiting for the courage of their hearts to unleash them into the light? As night draped its heavy mantle over the gathered assembly, an otherworldly hush enveloped the group. The air grew thick with the weight of anticipation, as if the heavens themselves held their breath, waiting for the next thread to be woven into this tapestry of revelation. An unseen presence hovered, inviting the brave to peel back the layers of their shared history. David stood still, absorbing the weight of the elder's words. The flickering candlelight seemed to dance with a life of its own, drawing him deeper into a contemplation of what lay beneath the surface of their emotions. He sensed that hidden truths, like rivers beneath frozen ground, ran deeper than anyone knew. A sudden burst of courage ignited within him. Perhaps, he suggested slowly, we should invite those whom we have labeled as adversaries to share their stories with us. In their narratives may lie the keys to our understanding. This assertion sparked a ripple of uncertainty. Gasps of disbelief pierced the silence, and anxious murmurs filled the air. The idea of welcoming enemies into their sacred space seemed both revolutionary and perilous. Would we not find ourselves vulnerable? Questioned the young woman, her brow furrowed with concern. What if they only wish to further deepen the wounds? They too walk in the shadow of loss, Nathan implored gently. In every encounter with pain, there exists the opportunity for connection. We may uncover the shared humanity beneath the enmity. The wise elder nodded, his eyes scanning the assembly for any glimmer of acceptance. In ancient tales, conflict often birthed unexpected alliances. Shall we not, in this moment, honor the legacy of those who risked everything for peace? David felt a surge of unity swell within the heart surrounding him, a collective yearning for something greater than their individual fears. There existed an indelible tug toward collaboration, a desire to transcend the boundaries that had long confined them, but just as hope began to unfurl, the night's tranquility was shattered. A voice rose from the back, a stranger, cloaked in darkness, his identity obscured. You speak of tales, yet what of the blood that stains these lands? Can we erase the ink of history with mere words? Gasps rippled through the crowd, and David's heart pounded in response to the challenge. The presence of this stranger unearthed a voice of skepticism embedded in the hearts of many. What you suggest is noble, but will it truly save us? Or will we find ourselves drowning in our sorrow instead? This poignant question bared the truth of their struggle. What if uncovering their shared history only inflicted greater wounds? Would they drown in the very tales that sought to liberate them? Is it not worth the risk? David countered, conviction filling his voice. In the face of uncertainty lies the potential for collective awakening. We may discover through honesty a common threads that can sew together our ripped canvas. The shadows shifted once more, darker and more pronounced against the flickering light. Beneath them lay an ocean of unknowns, murky depths that felt reminiscent of a stormy sea. Would the courage to face their histories encourage hope, or drown out their potential for connection? It was then that a sudden hush fell over the gathering as David felt a shiver run through him, a signal from the divine, an echo of past promises whispered to the hearts of the faithful. Were the accounts of their ancestors not reflections of their own struggles? Did not the stories of exile, deliverance, and reconciliation resonate through generations? In the silence that followed, a reflection hung like a fragile thread, one that urged them to consider what lessons remained lost in the wind, waiting to be sifted through their confessions. As the candle flickered one last time, almost as if to emphasize the wonder of this moment, David's heart raced with an unsettling question: how much darkness and light are woven into the same tale, and what would it take to bring forth the dawn? The air stirred, charged with the weight of unasked questions and unuttered fears. David's gaze swept over the assembly, searching for the flicker of a kindred spirit, anyone willing to brave the inferno of what was to come. The stranger stood starkly against the murmuring faces, a living reminder that shadows do not flee easily from the light. Who among you, the stranger's voice cut through the lingering doubt, has truly dared to listen? And when you do, what will you choose to hear? His eyes shone like coals, fierce and unyielding, and David felt his own uncertainty mirrored in others' averted gazes. A stirring arose, fraught with tumult. Those once bound by a shared yearning for peace now recognized the rift, the fissure between hopeful dreams and painful memories. Memories that held the weight of generations, memories wrapped in tears and blood, stories engraved in the very soil they stood upon. "Let us then gather our stories," David called out, his voice rising with tenacity, "both those we cherish and those we shun. For in them lies not only our sorrow but the testament of survival. If we hide from those tales, we only imprison ourselves further." "Do you truly believe our histories can intertwine?" questioned a voice near the front, a woman whose face was etched with conflict. "What of the hearts that have hardened? What of the anger, the unforgivable acts that thrive in silence?" David felt that question pierce his heart. "What of them indeed?" he murmured, thinking deeply. "A wound only festers when left unexamined." He took a deep breath, remembering the faces of his ancestors, those who had endured their own trials. Have our stories not always urged us toward redemption, to face that which frightens us? The wise elder stepped forward, his presence calming. "In our very creation, we are drawn to story, the thread that weaves us together. We must not be afraid to delve into its depths. It is there, in vulnerability, that we confront our truths." Yet, as hopeful murmurs began to ripple through the crowd, the stranger's laughter echoed a sound raw with incredulity. "You speak of unity and redemption, yet you cloak yourselves in fear. The wounds run too deep for mere declarations. How can your tender hearts hope to quell storms brewed with bitterness?" His challenge hung heavily in the air, a stark reminder that belief does not automatically dissolve deep-seated animosities. Had they overlooked the scars that shaped them? Would their yearning for collaboration be met with nothing but more strife? David's thoughts raced. Perhaps it is precisely within that discomfort that we find our salvation. We must embrace the authenticity of our struggles. Every sin, every victory must find its voice through our tongues, not our silence. With that, a ripple of conscience brushed against him, a shimmering reminder of the divine guidance they had received. Could it be that sacred stories danced on the edge of their history, calling out for articulation? He envisioned a gathering, their enemies sharing their struggles, their pain unveiled as a mirror reflecting the very essence of humanity. "Let us speak," David urged. "Let us invite the very passions that can birth conflict into this circle. It is time to confront ourselves in the eyes of those we see as foes." The crowd fell silent, the gravity of his words pressing in upon them like an early dawn breaking through the dark. Perhaps the stories they feared were actually what they needed most. Yet, as unyielding questions floated in the spaces between breaths, David realized that to dive into these narratives could bring anguish equally as it could bestow healing. As the stars began to flicker above, illuminating the encroaching night, an unsettling question stirred within him. If the path to peace lay veiled in the acceptance of past atrocities, how could they bravely traverse a road with no assurance of safety? And amidst such uncertainty, could their voices woven together or ruptured ever truly find harmony? As the night deepened, David's heart raced with the weight of the moment. He stood among his people, engulfed in an atmosphere thick with both trepidation and hope. The air smelled of damp earth, and the cool breeze carried whispers from the trees, ancient witnesses to the struggles of humanity. "Let us begin this exchange," he implored once more, his tone softening. "Let each voice rise to the heavens as a prayer, for in each of us lies a testament that breathes life into our shared narrative." With careful deliberation, a hesitant elder approached. "I remember the shadows of our past," he spoke, his voice trembling yet resolute. "In my youth, I witnessed the terror of siege, the flames that consumed our homes, the anguished cries that still echo in our hearts. Can these memories be transformed into a bridge rather than a barrier?" As his words spiraled into the open air, a younger man countered with equal fervor. "But is there not also love in our history? Love that endured despite the ravages of war? Must we always focus on pain, even when joy has bloomed amidst the rubble?" The air thickened again, conjuring an image of a delicate dance, joy and sorrow navigating one another through a tapestry woven from the threads of time. David felt inspired by the resilience of their shared testimony. Perhaps, he ventured cautiously, each is required to lift the other. Can our pain teach us to value the love that also binds us, a reminder that we endure together? A soft-eyed woman stepped from the gathering, her demeanor calm. But what of forgiveness? When the weight of our story surfaces, will forgiveness not feel out of reach? Can we truly afford to forgive those who have fought against us? Forgiveness, David reflected, is not just a gift we give to another. It is a release we offer for ourselves, an unchaining from bonds that hold us hostage to hurt. The crowd pondered this, minds swirling with ambivalence. Suddenly, the stranger spoke again, his tone laced with challenge. You speak of chains and bonds, yet you bind yourselves to the past as prisoners of unresolved memories. Each claim of redemption needs to delve deeper. Who among you has confronted the inner trials and allowed those shadows to illuminate the heart? A shiver danced through the assembly, as David felt the gravity of the stranger's words take root. Had they not merely skimmed the surface of their darkness, leaving the deeper cracks in their souls untouched? The collective stories murmured, but had they truly engaged the truth contained within those narratives? Then we must go deeper, David affirmed, a glimmer of awareness sparking within him. Let us comfort our inner wounds by invoking not only our histories but our fears as well. What terror dwells in our hearts that we have not expressed? What lies beneath our instinct to shield ourselves from one another? As this inquiry unfolded, silences grew heavier, the weight of unshared experiences punctuating the stillness. David wondered if they were ready to encounter the depths of their personal shadows, dilemmas, betrayals, and the consequences of choices long made. Was the fear of what lay beneath too potent to confront? With the moon illuminating the canopy above, casting familiar shapes upon the earth, David felt a resonance of something sacred emerging. Stories of pain intertwined with the potential for healing brought insight, but he acknowledged that venturing into these tales might unveil struggles previously buried. And with that unsettling thought lingering in the air, he asked himself anew, would the pursuit of honesty render them vulnerable or fortify their resolve? In seeking authentic unity through the shared experiences of struggle and redemption, would they discover a greater truth or find themselves lost in the complexities of their own labyrinths? As dawn broke, a subtle light illuminated the gathering, casting away the shadows that had accompanied the night. David felt the coolness of the morning air, fresh and uncertain, as if it, too, sensed the weight of the questions that had emerged. The people stood, eyes still reflecting the intensity of the discussion, hearts yearning for clarity yet shrouded in ambiguity. Shall we dare to confront our fears? David's voice rose above the hushed murmurs, echoing like a whisper to the wind. Each reflection, every hidden trepidation, waited just beneath the surface of their souls, yearning for acknowledgement. He looked into the faces of those assembled and saw masks of resolve combined with apprehension. Could facing these fears weave a new tapestry of their community? An aged woman stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly, yet her gaze was steady. I fear the divisions that have taken root among us, she confided, the weight of years burdening her tone. Each time we try to reconcile, the past pounces upon us like a lion, eager to rend our unity. It is not just the fear of the enemy outside, it is the foe within that threatens to destroy us. David nodded, grasping the truth in her words. Perhaps the lion within us stirs when we feel threatened or misunderstood. Are we not, then, tasked with calming this beast together? What if we sought to understand the perspectives that collide rather than push them away? Could love grow even where fear has flourished? Another voice, hesitant yet determined, rose from the throng. But how do we engage those truths without reopening wounds? What if the very act of confronting our inner lions lays bare the scars of our battle? Will we not risk yet another fracture? Yet, came the soft voice of the previous elder, our ability to heal requires us to face what we have buried. To heal is to be open to share not just in solitude but amidst community. In doing so, perhaps we can transform our pain into a conduit for understanding. David pondered this carefully. What if their most profound victories were hidden in the shadows of their bravest confrontations? He felt a stirring of hope in the collective spirit, yet his own heart thrummed with uncertainty. The courage they sought would need to be greater than they had known, much like the faith that sustained them throughout their trials. As he encouraged others to speak, a young girl, barely seen amongst the towering figures surrounding her, raised her voice. "But what if I don't know what lies beneath my own heart? I wish for courage, yet only fear knows my name. How can I fight a battle with shadows when I cannot see what I must face?" Her innocence painted a poignant picture, and David's heart softened. Sometimes, it is in the very act of asking the questions that the first steps are taken toward discovery. We do not always need to see the entire path, we need only to be willing to embark upon it together. Suddenly, the stranger, a silent observer turned participant, interjected again, "You wish to embark on these truths, yet do you understand the power of your intentions? In every gathering, every exchange of stories, potential for change lies dormant. Are you prepared to stoke that ember into a flame, demanding the light of understanding even amidst the ashes of your sorrow?" The assembly fell into contemplative silence, the weight of his words sinking into their hearts. David felt something inside him shift. It was not only the fear and uncertainty that formed a barrier, but also an overwhelming desire to feel connected, to belong even in vulnerability. Could they harness this power of intent and flow into a collective, transformative journey? As they deliberated together, half-formed thoughts danced in the recesses of David's mind. In stepping forth to confront their fears, they might find themselves unraveling not just their stories but the intertwined destinies that shaped their lives. Yet what kind of changes would that unleash? Would the act of revealing vulnerability lead to deeper unity, or might it also provoke unforeseen consequences, growing? Yet another barrier. With these questions deepening within him, David felt the gravity of their plight. What choices lay before them as they prepared to traverse the unknown, invited to uncover the mysteries within? Would their quest for understanding lead them to embrace the love they sought, or threaten to fracture the fragile bond they had begun to forge? As the morning sun climbed higher, bathing the assembly in warmth, the air thickened with a blend of vulnerability and anticipation. The altar stood solemn, holding witness to generations of prayers and confessions. David's heart raced. The conversations had pulled the veil off hidden emotions, but the true journey was only beginning. He could sense that they were on the brink of a revelation, not merely of their fears, but of the strength that lay within. A hush blanketed the gathering as the aged woman spoke again, her voice resonating with newfound vigor. "We must draw strength from our lineage. Remember the stories of our ancestors who faced insurmountable odds, who saw giants and storms yet chose hope instead of despair. Their courage is woven into the very fabric of our being. Can we not summon it now?" David felt a spark ignite within him. What if their stories serve not just as tales of past valor, but breadcrumbs leading us through our own wilderness? Might we discover that the giants of today, be they division or fear, can be faced with the same faith that guided them? A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd, yet a sharp voice sliced through the budding optimism. It was a younger man, one who had listened silently until this moment. But those were different times, with different battles. Do we even have the same God watching over us? What if we have lost the thread that binds us to our ancestors? Would they still recognize our struggles? The question hung heavy in the air, inviting further contemplation. David's chest tightened, uncertainty swayed in tandem with the hope that had begun to grow. Our struggles may differ, yet the core of our humanity remains tethered across the ages. Perhaps it is this divine thread that we seek to uncover. The faith that moved mountains in our stories can still resonate in our hearts if we choose to believe. Our God knows our challenges, for He has walked with us through every trial past and present. The young man frowned but nodded slowly, as if weighing the possibility. The reflection around them deepened. Each person grappled with the idea that their history, intermingled with the wider tapestry of faith, could offer guidance. Yet, how could they unlock this wisdom? How would they find the resilience stored within their collective spirit? Suddenly, the stranger spoke once more, his voice haunting yet clarifying. Intentions alone do not summon change. You must delve into the depths of your history and recognize the scars as sacred. Only then can you begin to weave a new story, one where both fear and love coexist and nourish one another. As if a spell had been cast, the assembly collectively leaned inward, listening to the stranger's words. Each revelation unveiled more questions. Could they reconcile their fears and memories to reignite hope? How deeply was this interconnectedness rooted in their individual souls, waiting to be resurrected through community and understanding? An uneasy tension pulsed among them, an awareness that simply acknowledging their fears was not enough. They would have to confront how deeply the past had defined them, how long-held grudges and misunderstandings had shaped their communal identity. Then, as if guided by an unseen force, David felt compelled to share his own fears, a fear of failing them all by not being a leader worthy of their trust. "What if," he whispered, each word trembling with sincerity, "in seeking to understand our fears and histories, we unearth revelations that shake the foundations of our beliefs? What if true understanding reveals that we have been blind or misguided?" An echo of gasps floated through the audience, the weight of the unknown settling across their hearts. It was as if David had spoken out the very trepidations that twisted within them. The path forward was wrapped in uncertainty, and every gaze revealed conflicting emotions: curiosity, hope, and trepidation swirled together. "What if," David continued, voice steadying, "the discovering of deeper truths leads us to a love that transcends our past? Can we embrace the discomfort of truth as the gateway to healing?" With every lingering silence, the magnitude of their journey crystallized. They stood at the edge, peering into the abyss of potential revelations that could either bind them together or drive them apart. The resolve they sought to foster was dawning, yet uncertainty shadowed every step. What awaited them on the other side of this introspective exploration? Would they boldly confront the tumult of their past, revealing shared scars that could forge a deeper union, or venture blindly into a chasm of bewilderment? In the annals of faith, could the cries of today echo the prayers of their ancestors, guiding them toward a transformative union? As the dawn light broke over the horizon, spilling warmth into the dimly lit chamber where David and his people gathered, a profound energy filled the air. It was a moment suspended in time, as the assembly stood on the precipice of realization, the weight of their shared histories mingling with the hope of reconciliation. King David, feeling the pulse of the gathering, recognized that every heart beat in anticipation of revelation. "Let it be known," David began, his voice resonant and steady, "that we are not merely passive seekers of peace, we are called to be active participants in the weaving of our destinies. We stand at the confluence of our past and the promise of our future. Can we summon the courage to step into the unknown together?" A silence, thick with unspoken fears and flickering hope, enveloped the room. In that stillness, a collective breath seemed to ignite a flame within each person, fueling a shift that began deep within their hearts. They could sense it, an awakening, a stirring that beckoned them to venture beyond the wounds, instead illuminating the stories they carried like hidden treasures. "Brothers and sisters," a voice rang out, one of a young man who had remained silent until now. "If the stories of our past are the roots from which we spring, then let us examine them with open hearts. I too have lost to the darkness of this divide. My family has borne the torment of loss, yet I now see beneath our rage lies the desire for understanding." Echoes of agreement flowed through the assembly, the simple act of acknowledgement fostering an unbreakable bond among them, a shared recognition of humanity intertwined. Inspired by the young man's courage, the elderly woman rose to speak with heartfelt clarity. "It is not through avoidance of our suffering that we heal, but through the brave confrontation and articulation of it. Let us lay our fears bare and listen to one another, uncovering the shared burdens we carry." As she spoke, the flame on the altar flickered violently, casting dancing shadows that seemed to mirror their internal struggles. "Together, we can purge the depths of our sorrow, transforming it into a language of grace." The energy among them shifted, excitement replacing apprehension. As the notion of unity began to blossom, David took a moment to absorb their resolve. "Sacred stories can either bind us or set us free. What if we dared to invite those from beyond our borders, the very ones we have painted as foes, to share in this circle of truth? What if we could face the fearsome tales of our adversaries, seeking not to condemn, but to understand?" A ripple of apprehensive murmurs spread through the crowd, yet beneath that unease was hope stirring. They were aware, as if guided by an unseen presence, that this was a call deeper than they had ever experienced. Nathan, standing beside David, added gravely, "To accept an invitation for dialogue is to confront the very essence of our humanity. Are we ready to embrace what lies hidden in the narratives we've long avoided?" David met the gaze of each person, searching for their heart's response. His own barely contained the urgency of the moment. "Let us set aside the fears that cling to us," he urged. "In searching out the hearts of those we once deemed enemies, perhaps we will find that healing does not come alone, it arrives hand in hand with empathy." One by one, hearts began to soften. An elder rose, trembling from years of heartbreak but burning with a renewed spirit. "I have watched generations suffer, I have buried too many friends, too much anger," he said, his voice breaking. And yet I long to understand what this quest for unity could bring. If they have endured as we have, can we not seek the common ground where healing might flourish?" "Yes," came the chorus of voices, a collective affirmation rising like a tide. The air was thick with potential, and hearts that once turned away now faced one another, ready to forge an uncharted path of vulnerability. And then, as though conjured from the depths of their shared yearning, the stranger emerged from the shadows once more. "You stand at the threshold of transformation. Will you embrace that which frightens you most? The roads of your past carry both joy and grief together, they are the soil from which new unity could bloom." Emboldened, David stepped forward. "It is true, transformation requires courage. We must invite those who have been cast as adversaries into our circle not as conquerors, but as fellow seekers of truth." He held out his hands, a gesture of both invitation and resolve. A palpable stir ran through the group, an exhilarating electric sense of possibility hummed in the air. In that moment of communion called forth through David's heart, a wave of unity swept over the assembly. "Let our stories intertwine," Nathan echoed, "so that together we might not only face our fears but also the reflections of ourselves hidden within our shared legacy." With renewed fervor, David gathered his voice once more. "We shall indeed gather not only our own tales but those others who have tasted the bitterness of our conflict. For we are tasked to rewrite the narrative, to transform the tale of animosity into one of kinship understood through the lens of compassion." As a soft light began to illuminate the gathering, they collectively understood this journey would not be easy, but it was essential. Hope glimmered like the first morning rays, heralding a new beginning born from the ashes of their past, and as they readied themselves to engage in this sacred endeavor, a profound hush blanketed the room, reverberating through time and space. In that moment, David realized, they stood at the dawn of an awakening. "This is not merely our story," he proclaimed, "but the story of humanity. We shall no longer anchor ourselves to old wounds alone, instead, we shall pull each other toward the light of understanding. We must seek the divine in our shared plight, allowing healing to flow from the depths of our encounters." United in purpose, they began to forge a bridge toward that which they had once feared. With every story shared, mistrust began to dissolve like morning fog, revealing the pathway of hope illuminated before them. They understood now, that in opening their hearts, they were crafting a new legacy not just for themselves but for those who would come after them. As the sun rose ever higher, flooding the room with light, the assembly felt the warmth embrace them, as though that very light celebrated their courage. They knew now that beyond the threads of sorrow and fear was something sacred, waiting patiently to be unveiled, a deeper truth echoing the spirit of their shared humanity, and with this realization, the last vestiges of darkness began to recede, paving the way for an unbreakable dawn of unity and compassion to rise. David felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. "Together we shall journey forward," he declared, looking into the eyes of his people, "and our hearts shall bear witness to the miraculous transformation taking root among us." And thus, a new chapter in their shared history began, not as fragments of discord, but as a symphony woven from the threads of pain and redemption, igniting a collective flame destined to shine brightly across the ages. In their vulnerability and courage, they discovered a powerful revelation: the beauty of healing, a balm gently pressing against scars, revealing the sacred tapestry of life, echoing a message across the expanse of time that love, indeed, has the power to transform all.